It's NutBallCop again. How's everybody doing? Hello, Ken. Thank you for joining. Got my list of things I want to talk about and got some of my quotes up on my laptop because I named this live video "The Rolling Disaster Continues" because yeah, this is like more East Germany than America. Um, the propaganda has no limits. There's nothing they're not willing to disinform people on. Um, the Democrats aren't exactly our saviors, but at least they're grounded in somewhat of reality as opposed to the nationalists under Trumpianism that have become unmoored from reality. Um, I'm going to start off with one of the things that's been bugging me for days. I know this is not exactly, groundbreaking news. Everybody's been talking about this, but I've actually got the transcript up of the White House meeting where they were going to declare, or they already, dear leader Pornstar Humper had already declared that Antifa, an ideology, not an organization, was a MTO, a major terrorist organization, except I checked. There's nothing in the statutes about MTO. That's not a thing. You can't just look at a group and go, oh, the AFL-CIO or the teachers union or this PAC that supports Democratic candidate that's running against the right winger you like. You can't just look at them and go, oh, you're a major terrorist organization. Send the government out to kill you. Okay. Shut off your bank accounts. They're talking about everything. Um, what what was said in that meeting was so literally insane and such a purposeful lie. And I'm gonna read you. This is right from rev.com, the transcript site. So starting at 15:25 of the televised mishmash that they pulled the other day, um, Christy Nome is already speaking and saying wild things, accusing Picker, Pritzker. I can never get his name straight. The governor of Illinois, Pritzker, uh, uh, of helping Antifa cover it all up, whatever that means. But I'm going to get here to the direct quote. Let's read this passage and I'll talk about it. Okay. They have been bold in making sure we're bringing up those individuals to justice. One of the individuals we arrested recently in Portland was the girlfriend of one of the founders of Antifa. And we are hoping that as we go after her, interview her and prosecute her, we will get more and more information about the network and how we can root them out and eliminate them from the existence of American society. A couple of sentences later, she basically equates. No, she doesn't basically. Let me read the quote. This is a quote. And how this network of Antifa is just as sophisticated as MS-13, as TDA, as ISIS, as Hezbollah, as Hamas, as all of them. Now, we all know what this meeting was. It was the confab to kiss Donald Trump's ass and tell him exactly what he wants to hear. And the more you can layer on the bullshit, the happier Trump will be. So, dear leader was completely impressed. Thank you very much for lying like that in the meeting. I really appreciate that, Christy. Now on to Kash Patel, who's got a fucking hole in his head. Okay, this is why. Now, everything we're dealing with is all dovetailed into one thing, into the next, into the next. Lies like this in these meetings where they get the right-wing press, the nationalist press, the Goomba press, these podcasters and influencers who are not journalists. They point a camera at it and then they go, oh, look, clickbait. Look, we saved the world from Antifa. Okay. What's only thing that's getting reported out of the White House and soon the Pentagon, that's my next thing, is exactly what the propaganda is the way Stephen Miller wants it or Ross Voss wants it to be. Okay. I mean, the FBI director in Senate testimony. I looked this up the other day. It was Ray who was the director then. Antifa is not a terrorist organization. Okay, and being a military police sergeant who was in two countries dealing with drug trafficking and terrorist activities and some other things, um, reading through this paragraph and looking through this transcript, I cannot tell you how absurd they're being. Okay, you can't take a slogan on social media for the Gen Zs and the millennials and just go, and I guess the alphas are there now too on social media, um, and just go, oh look, it's a terrorist organization. We declared a terror organization. We're going to kill them now. This is just Soviet grade fantasies. This is shit you should see in like Idi Amin's Uganda, in Ceausescu's Romania, in Kim's North Korea. This is not shit you should be seeing here in America. But they're literally telling you a political ideology or a loosely held political belief is a terrorist organization. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You have absolutely no clue what you're talking about. Or you're abjectly lying because you're in a cult and the cult leader wants to hear his enemies list. Okay, this is Nixonian enemies bullshit where he didn't like the Negroes and the hippies. He didn't use the word Negro, by the way. Listen to the tape. He said this aloud several times. He didn't like certain groups of people. Okay. And he did activate the FBI and the CIA and other elements of the government against certain groups, for sure. Okay. But what's the difference between Nixonian hateful enemies crap versus Trumpian politics is they're willing to deploy the military. They're willing to deploy a federal agency, a non-military federal agency, and deploy it as if it was the military, and giving them military authority to start fucking up towns across America. Okay. So if you're wondering why there's only right wingers in the White House and they can go through this Goomba narrative where a loosely held belief is now the same as Hezbollah. I mean, Hezbollah's got to be laughing their fucking ass off right now. I mean, they've just got to be in tears laughing. Antifa's your problem. Yeah. Yeah. Hezbollah took their pound of flesh in Beirut. That they're probably really, really laughing at this. But the same reason you're getting the right wingers who have no journalistic skills, no integrity, no morals, and no ethics, pretending to be the White House press corps, that's exactly what you got today at the Pentagon under Pete Hegseth, in the same language of Trump. Because now, no matter what the topic is, every single crony, every single acolyte, every single sycophant, every single rube sounds just like Dear Leader Porn Star Humper. The same frustrated, accusatory, propagandized bullshit that comes out of his mouth, it's coming out of everybody's mouth, verbatim in the style of Dear Leader. Okay. When they all start acting like Kim Jong-un, you should start getting worried. Okay. Their methods nor their goals are not moral. They're not pure. They're definitely not American. Okay. So it was nice to see that everybody, from my last check, everybody except One America News, which is not news, it's just a propaganda state TV. It's the equivalent of Serb TV under Milosevic and Yugoslavia. Okay. Um, but the even the right leaning news outlets, except for the crazy far right OAN, every single outlet I looked up, none of them will sign Hegseth's press agreement for the Pentagon, and it's an absurd request in the history hindsight of the Pentagon Papers during Vietnam, them making this dictum is patently absurd and against history. Okay, because remember, the Supreme Court came back and overwhelmingly said, yeah, the Pentagon Papers was something the American people had a right to know, and that right is established in the First Amendment under freedom of the press. The Founding Fathers knew exactly what they were doing when they gave the press the power of the Fourth Estate. And the Supreme Court, back in the Nixon era, said they actually held that power. Now, the great thing, now I recommend watching The Post with Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks, because the best scene of the movie comes at the end where Tom Hanks playing Bill, the editor of the Washington Post, and Katharine Graham is being played by Meryl Streep. He goes rushing into Meryl Streep's office the morning the decision came down, and he has a paper grocery bag, shopping bag, just full of papers, newspapers. And he walks into her office and starts throwing down Boston Globe, Christian Science Monitor, Detroit Free Press, Atlantic Journal Constitution, Sacramento Bee, paper. Everyone's got the same headline the morning of the decision. Okay. Not only did they cover up Vietnam, but they're doing dirty shit to do it. Okay. So that's why you have a White House press corps, which is absent journalism right now. It's been replaced by right-wing Goomba propaganda stations, internet outlets, and influencers. The fact that Tim fucking Pool is in the White House makes me want to vomit on Tim Pool. Okay. The moron in the Nick cap has questions, and I watch him ask questions, and there's like, can I lick your boots first? These are weak ass men, and I'll get to weak ass men later here in the discussion today. So you have total misinformation coming out from the White House and the Pentagon. The CDC is no better. HHS is no better. DOJ is no better. They knew they needed to hijack the courts first. That was their first goal, and they did it. Okay? Then they had to take Roberts hostage as the Chief Justice, and they did. Okay? My theory is the Republican, now Goomba nationalist right, have already threatened Chief Justice Roberts. Either you toe our line or you're going to be impeached. Okay? Because Roberts wasn't given the same deal Comey Barrett and Kavanaugh and Gorish were given. They were given a deal at the Heritage Foundation or the Federalist Society meeting or at a conference room at the Hyatt. They were told explicitly, you turn these cases over and you decide everything the way we want them, we will give you power. So they took out the courts first, and they went right to the top to do it. While the Democrats sat on their fucking hands. Why Nancy Pelosi had her fist up her own ass. Okay? The Democrats sat there silently as they hijacked the courts. Now they're hijacking the press. Okay? They're much less successful at that. They're being able to cloister the press around them with only friendlies, but they're not doing what they've been able to achieve at the court level. That's not going to work. In the signing on to you can't report anything, including unclassified, and this includes the Army Times and the Stars and Stripes papers I still read. All these decades later from my service, I still read the Stars and Stripes. Okay, they report on a whole bunch of shit the Pentagon doesn't want to let people know, but it's legitimate news. And the Stars and Stripes has always been a source of news for service members. They're trying to restrict Stars and Stripes in the Army Times too. This is how remarkably absurd this all is. So they've restricted reporting around the White House. They've restricted reporting around DOJ, HHS, CDC, now the entire military. Now they get to echo chamber even at a faster cycle and at a louder volume than they've ever been able to do with just Fox Noise or the Nazi come up second party, second tier, the B string Newsmax and OAN. Um, they're getting what they could have never achieved through those, because now there's nobody else reporting what was said in the room. So all they have to do now is, oh, you weren't there, so you don't know what was said, so you're wrong. Add propaganda and disinformation at will. Okay. So now everybody, including Scalise, okay, I wish liberals could aim. Scalise, Mr. Mouth, Mr. Pro Gun, even though he's a gun violence victim and a political terrorism victim. He gets up there and he goes full Nazi today. Full on. No Kings is a terrorist organization. See, it's not just Antifa now. It's not just protest. It's if you actually protest in scale, you're a terrorist. You're a member of a terrorist organization for exercising your First Amendment right to assembly. And he excoriated anybody not supporting Trump as a leftist terrorist. I'm not even liberal. Okay. I hate the Trump administration. You're gonna excoriate me, motherfucker? What he's doing is wrong. What you guys are doing across the board is wrong. It's immoral. It's the exact wrong direction for our country. It repeats all the bullshit of failed ideologies of the 20th century. I've been over this time and time again, and it's getting frustrating. People need to bring this up at the coffee shops. They need to bring it up when they're talking to their relatives at a house party. They need to say this when they're not at the bar. Okay? This is the same shit they all did. All the assholes did in the 20th century. Hoxha, Ceausescu, Amin, Hussein, Gaddafi, the Kims. Okay? They took control of the press. They limited information. Okay? They used propaganda as their first method of communication. Then they used state violence to keep you shut up and well behaved under their standards. And trust me, under the Trumpian standards, this is where white boys are in for a teeth kicking. Okay? Steel boots in the dentures. You ready for this, white boys? They're not going to stop at the people they're complaining about now. As soon as they think they need another target, it could be you, just like it could be me. It could be the Irish again. Me, my folk. Okay? It could be farmers asking for their market back that Trump just destroyed. Okay? It could be defense contractor employees who want a living wage increase. It could literally be anybody. Okay. It could be a police union who makes an announcement is, hey, we're not down with these ICE idiots. Okay. So if you step out of line one iota, you're going to be on Trump's and his crew's shit list. And it has nothing to do with being black or white or brown or Kirk's green girlfriend. Nothing. This is about totalitarianism. I'm in control. I am your savior. I am your ultimate patriarchy. That's how they get the white women to vote. Okay. They scare the living fuck out of white women. And then they tell you, we're your protectors. Oh, yeah. Hegseth protected a woman in Monterey, California so well, he had to pay her $50,000, after the rape investigation. So I'm going to tell you, get your ass, get your family, get your friends, get your coworkers, get your online buddies. Everybody get out in the goddamn streets on Sunday. I've never been to a protest not being a cop in my life. I am going to be out holding a goddamn sign, wearing my military police cap. I'm going to go dig out my old America flag t-shirt that was a birthday gift from my team chief in CID many years ago. I stopped wearing it in Trump's first term. I used to wear it all the time. Okay. I was a proud American patriot until these assholes showed up, and I don't want anybody confusing them with me. because I don't believe in anything these Nazis believe in. Okay, Ike. Like, remember I said before, like my formative years, I kind of consider myself, one of the last old Ike Republicans. Yeah, Ike didn't go down with the Nazis either. I'm certainly not. But I'm going to dig out my American flag here. America, all the stars, American flag in the center of my chest. And I'm going to be wearing that to the damn protest on Saturday. I'm taking it back. I'm taking my patriotism back. You don't like it, Nazi ball licking boys? Go screw yourself. Go fucking airtight Kyle Rittenhouse if you feel bad about yourself. Jerk offs. But yeah, my wife has never been to a protest. She wants to go. Okay, I got friends who same boat I am. They want to get out this weekend. I think we need to, because they're telling us we're a terrorist organization if we follow the First Amendment. I want to see. I don't know how many tens of millions, but I want to see it blow the doors off the last numbers. Everybody should be getting out there. Um, and the whole thing is they line up in Congress. They won't reopen the House. House is still closed because Grijalva from Arizona won her dad's seat. So she's ready to get sworn in. And she already told Thomas Massie, the Republican, that she will sign his discharge petition, which will get the vote on the floor for the release of the Epstein files. Okay. So to hide the Epstein files again, and really about half of all this shit in the last few days is all about keeping the Epstein files secret. Okay, which they're not. All the victims could just hold a press conference and they go, I've already filed. What they do is they file bankruptcy an hour before the press conference. So there's nothing to, a tort can't get anything from them, and then go out and just tell as victims, give their victim statements and who did it to them. But, which they may have to do if Mike Johnson never reopens the House, which is a total possibility. He's that much of a devout wacko. He is such a queasling to Trump and his foreign dictator homies he praises, that he is more than willing to keep the House shut down for as long as it takes for people to stop talking about the Epstein list. But I just find it funny that you got this whole parade of right wingers, not one of them conservatives, not big C or little c. No, these guys are nationalists. These are national socialists who are now head diving long into communism. So they're going to get up and they're going to point their fingers at us. You're a bad man. You're a terrorist. You're a member of a terrorist organization. Why? Because I'm going to go protest this weekend about bad policies. Oh, okay. So you know what this makes Congress? A pedophile protection racket. Because you were all about finding the groomers. That asshole Prebosek made a career out of the false story of Comet Pizzagate, Hillary in the basement with the kids. Said that before. Not a fan of Hillary. Really don't think she's a child molester. Her husband's a degenerate, but she had nothing to do with that. Okay, nothing whatsoever. But they made entire careers out of it online in the right wing speaking circle and the right wing media circles. Now people like Andy Netanyahu and Prebosek are in the White House, both being alpha bros and victims at the same time. That must be hard. So yeah, all your influencers, all your talking heads. This is Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, Prebosek, Benny Johnson, Andy. These these ever loving twats are now part of a pedophile protection racket. Because if you're not, why are you hiding the goddamn list? If this list is the definitive answer, which when you thought other people were on it you didn't like, you were 125% in favor of releasing the list. Now you won't release it for anything. Because you know for a fact, this is already leaked. There are hundreds of photos of Trump with young girls, some of them topless, some of them in other states of undress. People have already said that aloud. Victims are starting to talk, but they're going to sit here and go, oh, no, I can't give you the Epstein list because you're all terrorists. You're designating anybody who, because right now, according to Trump's polling, which is collapsing right now, okay, out of the 300, what do we have now? 340 million Americans here. You've probably got the hardcore voting support of about maybe 45 to 50 million people. You only had 70 plus at the last election, but you've lost a ton of that, you know, especially in the farming community, especially in the shipping and logistics communities. Everybody's getting uh, waylaid by these tariff policies. He doesn't have the votes, but they think they have the political capital to just sit there and go, oh no, you're a terrorist. This is why we can't let the groomers out in public. That makes no sense. This was your brand for years. Gotta find the groomers. Marjorie Taylor Greene would never shut the fuck up about the groomers. Now she's trying to be not a crazy bitch. You notice that in the last, what, 4 or 5 days? Now she's holding interviews and she's actually speaking like she's read a book in her life. Okay. She realizes that the scheme of the BBB and the scheme of the tariffs is going to destroy her home district. And her home district is telling her this. Okay. Moron Taylor Greene is one of the few former MAGA crazies who are now challenging Trump directly. Release the files. Don't increase healthcare costs. Don't get rid of ACA. Because you know what they're doing with ACA. It's the same playbook from when they got mad at John McCain for doing the vote down and keeping ACA a thing. They go, oh, Obamacare is bad. Why? Because when the term Obamacare is polled, it polls crappily. Especially um, uh, especially with MAGA Republicans. It's just not going well. Okay, so they just loathe ACA. They loathe Obamacare. If you put Barry's name on it, they don't like it. If you call it the Affordable Care Act, and then they look at their bill, and the bill says Affordable Care Act credit, and their insurance is a much smaller number, they love that shit. Okay, they're slowly waking up, including formerly complete moron Taylor Greene is coming to a conclusion like this will literally destroy families and literally destroy their home districts. But this is what it's all about for Trumpianism and Trumpian politics. Just there is no win-win. There must be win-lose. Dear leader porn star Humper has to win. America has to lose. America has to win. Denmark has to lose. Japan has to lose. And you see this over and over. Look at the first administration, first term of Trump, what he did to the Japanese in the trade negotiations. He had to fuck over the Japanese trade minister. He had to, because that's the only success in his fucked up foul mind. And when they can't lie hard enough, they'll try lying harder anyways. Their first argument was they want to spend $1.5 trillion giving illegal immigrants healthcare. No, that's not true at all. Since 1996, legal immigrants cannot get anything other than emergency treatment at the emergency room. And the thing that gives them emergency care at the emergency room is called EMTALA, EMTALA. Okay, and the bill that allows proper Medicare payments for reimbursements to local emergency rooms was signed by that famous Democrat. Oh, no, wait a minute. He was a Republican. Ronald Reagan. They hate Ronald Reagan now. We know they already hate Eisenhower and they think Nixon's a commie. But the law that Ronald Reagan signed in to allow Medicare to reimburse local hospitals for emergency care, like accidents, industrial accidents, car accidents, whatever, okay, emergency disease scenarios, whatever. Yeah, the federal government will reimburse the local emergency room. Why? So your local emergency room doesn't go out of business, which has been a theme since the 90s, closing emergency rooms, right? All over the country. Now they're not going to just close emergency rooms under the BBB and under their HHS tear down. They're going to close the entire fucking hospital. They were just happy before to increase profits by closing the expensive emergency room because a lot of uninsured people show up to the emergency room. That's the biggest problem with the Affordable Care Act. It doesn't cover everybody. It's not like a French or a German or Australian system where everybody is covered. You still have indigents showing up to the main place where indigents get care. And that's unfortunately the emergency room, not a much cheaper doctor's office. Okay. So Republicans, if we can't close your hospital by the BBB, we're going to at least close your emergency room because we're going to take away the EMTALA. Signed by Ronald Reagan, who I guess now was Antifa, woke. What is Ronald Reagan according to you Nazis? Oh, and they're gonna jail me if I call them Nazis. If you're a Nazi and you have your mouth on the ball sack of another Nazi, you may be a Nazi. Because that's your whole system of influence right now, is who's sucking whose balls. Um, why do they suddenly want to now also? Because the lie didn't work that $1.5 trillion was going to be spent on illegals, because that was a lie from straight out. Now they're taking a much lower number. Okay. And if we actually taxed rich people like Thiel and Musk and Trump and his entire cabinet, his whole advisor set, if we actually taxed the ultra wealthy in this country, we'd have plenty of money to refund the emergency rooms locally. Because I think right now they have it in their mind that if a non-payment occurs, that non-payment was caused by a non-white person. Any debt, any bill, any unwanted commission was caused by a non-white person. So if we build our ethno state, okay, which even I don't belong in, maybe they'll proxy me in because my wife is German, but my ass doesn't get in as an Irish. So they want their ethno state. So their ethno state is now going to blame anything on non-whites. And in the end, this is what the policy does in the real world. In policy in the real world, if you shut off the emergency room funding from Medicare, people are going to die of completely treatable injuries and diseases. Now, to the right wing press corps of the Pentagon, because everybody else left today, to the right wing press corps of the White House, everybody else got kicked out months ago. Okay, how's this going to be reported? Trump is saving America by lowering our emergency room costs. But is he really doing that? No, no. He's just shutting off care for certain people. And by the way, that's why a lot of white people vote for these stupid right-wing fascist policies, because it's relativity. They don't live in the rural area of Nebraska or Iowa or Montana. Their hospital is not going out of business. They go to a very high end doctor who doesn't take insurance, who pays everybody pays cash to him. That doctor's never going out of business. The pharmacy they go to is never going out of business. Okay, your doctor may be going out of business. Your emergency room, your hospital, your pharmacy. We just lost our pharmacy down the hill. Okay. So all your shit's going away, not theirs. So in relativity, do they give a shit? No, no. So here comes the lie, because I don't care. Okay, I'm just going to trade insider trade stocks as in the companies we're talking about in the committee hearing live. We caught that. Lisa says they're culling the vulnerable. Yes, yes. And when they said they wanted to get rid of Social Security and Medicare, what is the number? I'm not saying Social Security is perfect, but what is the number one government program that helped extend lives in the elderly? Medicaid. What was the number one plan the government came up with that reduces elderly poverty? Social Security. And I brought this example. I'll repeat it in this video. Like, Elon Musk wanted that stupid $53 billion payday, but the Delaware judge said, go pound sand. You're an idiot. Nobody deserves a $53 billion payday. But let's say he got it. Okay. Do you understand his FICA taxes? The FICA that funds Social Security and Medicare stops at $166,700. So he only pays the one side of the tax. Okay. And he leaves the rest of us to pay for the funding gap in the Social Security fund, trust fund. Okay. If you'd have taxed him on the 53 billion, he would have owed a couple of billion just in Social Security taxes. Okay. Lisa says again, Lisa says some more. We have universal health care here in Canada, and it's doable. You're absolutely right. I used to live in West Germany. I have friends all over the world, Australia, Japan, Malaysia, Canada. One of my best mates is a Sandhurst graduate, a Canadian communication officer. We almost talk almost daily still. He's back up in Toronto, but we're still very close. We always talk about universal healthcare, because all universal healthcare is not communism, nor is it socialism. It's just paying into a public trust, just like Social Security. Bruce Fine, the old hardcore libertarian, much more hardcore than I am in the libertarian space. He was the budget director for Reagan, and he went after a reporter. Went headhunting after this reporter when the reporter tried to claim that Social Security was a unconstitutional socialist measure. And Bruce Fine went off on him. He's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's just a trust fund. You can create public trusts. That's totally within the Constitution. Okay. And in healthcare here, all we'd be doing is removing a lot of the middlemen who are just taking our healthcare dollars away from us and away from our doctors and nurses and our hospitals and our emergency rooms, and they're putting it in their own pockets. Pharmacy benefit managers is the biggest examples right now. Okay. The reason your prescriptions are so high and they're not low like Canada, they're not low like France or Germany or Australia, is because we're paying a super private tax, having a private organization telling us how expensive the drugs can be. Okay. We just recently allowed many of the government agencies to negotiate drug prices. That's fucking ridiculous. The Veterans Administration couldn't negotiate drug prices. That's an Americanism. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the industrialized world. Oh, and this is a little fun factoid. We're the only country in the Western Alliance post World War II that never fixed healthcare. Everybody else did. Most of your new democracies, like Eastern Europe, the technocracies of the Pacific, all have some form of highly subsidized, but universal healthcare. And even countries that don't have a public system, like Switzerland, they have universal coverage. They will subsidize the shit out of a poor or disabled person to give them medical care. And that's in Switzerland, which is a very conservative country. It's a very beautiful country. It's one of my favorite places on earth. I learned to ski on Mount Titlis in Switzerland many years ago. Some of the most beautiful places on earth is in the German and Swiss Alps. So, they don't want universal health care. They just don't want any care. They want care for themselves, their kids, because giving health care to the lower quintiles of the economy, or if you want to, castes of our economy, is just a anti-competition measure. You can't compete with uh, with my kids, because your kid's sick, you're poor. My kids will do better. It's not socialism, Lisa says. It's a social safety net. I've made that point a dozen times recently. Okay. Yeah. And the fact that dental care in your brain is not included in healthcare in this country. Yeah. My wife's cousin is a surgeon in Germany today. In fact, he's coming to visit in a couple of days. They're here in America visiting the family. He thinks it's just grossly absurd and immoral that dental care and mental health are not included automatically. Because again, that's another thing that's just automatically covered in other countries. Like I've been thinking about buying a retirement home in Spain, and I looked at their expat public insurance. First of all, it's only 99 euros for a guy that's going to be 60 in his 60s. Okay. It's 99 euros a month, and everything is covered down to your teeth and your brain and pre existing conditions. There's no exceptions. Okay. Oh, and once you're there for a year and you apply for one of the two types of residencies, you don't have to be a citizen, but you apply for residencies like a green card here in America, and you can get into the subsidized pool. And I think after that, what was it, $59, 50 not dollars, euros, 59 euros a month for full on healthcare. And it's completely doable in America. Anybody that tells you that's not they can't do it is lying. Because the systems that work, we know the systems that work. It's Mass General, it's Mayo in the Midwest, and Kaiser out here on the West Coast. And they're nonprofit, solution-driven, computerized medical care. They're the systems that work. All the other systems are failing. Look at Kaiser. They're all their workers are on constant strike. There are constant investigations against the hospitals. I'm not saying that Mass General, Mayo, or Kaiser are perfect, but they're doing a hell of a lot better than the private for-profit companies, and they're not providing any long-term solutions on the for-profit side. Where did I want to go? Okay, so we're dealing with the Goombas showing up the lectern. They're claiming we're all terrorists. They don't want to give us any care. Whatever government solution we want, then let's call it socialism. While Trump himself practices communism, he now wants part of the Alaskan Mining Trust. And of course, Uncle Bernie agrees with him. Jesus Christ, commies. But I know many of you already saw this, but the text thread leak. If the current GOP is this level of assholes, do you have any idea what we're up against with the next generation? Did you see the leaks of these text messages from the young Republicans? Their entire leadership look like weebles. They're the exact opposite of the manly man alpha bro that Pete Hegseth is just demanding for the military. The one dude who dresses exactly to the T, including the red tie that is too long. But what is Trump? 6'3", 6'4", probably wears like a 48 long. I don't know what circus tent this motherfucker had to buy his blue jacket with, but oh my God, this guy's big. Okay. But he's a manly man, and he knows all the minorities need to be deported. Everybody he doesn't like needs to be killed. They started creating lists of women they'd like to rape. So if you think this group, this current generation are assholes, and they are, and they're subscribing to failed authoritarian politics of the 20th century, the next generation's a nightmare in waiting. Okay. This is why I've been telling you, you haven't been dealing with a political movement per se. You've been dealing with a bunch of people who want to seize the political system and run it like it was a street gang. Those text messages are damn proof of what the text messages reminded me is when they got all the home videos on VHS of the Jamaican gangs in Chicago when they became the big thing in Chicago. And during a search warrant, they went in there and the gang was screwed. They found like 40 pounds of coke and crack, all their money. What you don't ever keep your money and your bulk in the same place. And then you definitely don't provide 120 hours worth of VHS videotaped evidence for the federal police defined. The similarities between the text messages of the young Republicans today and the Jamaican street gangs of the 80s and 90s is when they thought people weren't around, they had a certain language, a certain verbiage. Okay. That's why they were talking the way they do, because that's the way they talk amongst themselves. Okay. I said this a couple of videos ago. Okay. When I was out one night in West Germany working undercover, kind of scoping out new sources, new targets, and an area we had some intelligence about, I end up at the bar with my partner, uh, and we end up meeting with two Nazis who don't like being called neos. Um, they didn't know, of course, because we're undercover, so they spoke quite openly that night. Okay, they didn't like being called neo. They were professional haters, and what they said in public, they literally couldn't say in West Germany at the time because they get arrested. You can't be doing Nazi shit. Even till today in France and Germany and Belgium, you can't be doing that. You'll get arrested. So they're very quiet, but when they think they're talking to a friendly, you hear all their verbiage come out at once. Okay. The verbiage you heard in the text messages, yeah, that's not surprising to me whatsoever. That's just par for the course, par for the Trumpian course. These exactly are the personalities. Lisa said they're the same as the old guard. No, my point is they're worse. They have no decorum. Okay. At least their fathers and grandfathers and uncles knew the ropes of the politics at the state, the county, and the federal level. These guys are just street gang members looking up to rough up people. The idiot group, this is the difference between how dangerous Donald Trump is and how remarkably dangerous and that much more stupid Uday and Kusei are. Donald Jr. and Eric Trump. Okay. They're getting worse. That's my warning to you. Don't think they're the same thing, because there was a big arc in racism in the 20s with the KKK becoming a political party in the Midwest. There was another big bump in the 50s with the concerned or conservative citizens councils, KKK in a suit and tie at the local organizations. Uh, but Reaganism didn't lean on what the John Birch Society leaned on. Okay, they would have never gotten away with that with a lot of the personas that were still around back in the late 70s, early 80s. Today, the mask is completely torn off. They know who they are. They're going to say it aloud, and their policies are going to reflect their inner feelings. And it's not just like I just talked about, the anti-competitive. Well, I'm going to get a little mean against this group of people because that keeps their kids away from my kids. My kids have a better chance. Okay. It's animals hunting for food in the wild. If I can give my pup more resources, my pup's going to grow up healthier. Okay. That's sick in a human context, but I'm just saying that's what their thinking was before. Now it's something just directly insane. Now it's much more straight up. Hey, we believe in Nazism. We believe in violence. We believe in political violence. We believe in rape as a method of not just warfare, but as political discourse. And I'll say this again, on January 6th during the insurrection, if they got a hold of Mike Pence would have died that day. He'd have been hung. Okay. If they'd have got a hold of any female Congress member, she'd have been raped, tortured, and killed. We were so close to an absolute disaster because of who these people have now become and how comfortable Trump has made them feel of taking off any pretense of a mask. We are just going to do exactly what we want to do in any method we want to do it. And you hear it with the mouthpieces like Charlie Kirk and Benny Johnson. And they don't have to be total sickos. They can just be assholes. Like, who's the guy? PDB? Man, every time I see a clip of him, I'm like, oh, God. I talked about Alaska a few minutes ago. how he wanted part of the Alaskan mining trust, but he doesn't give a shit about the people who live in Alaska. They just get hit by a typhoon. There's no help coming. Just like when he told Huckabee in Arkansas after their thunderstorms and tornadoes, you're not getting any help. There's massive devastation on the coastlines in Alaska. Nobody's helping them. Okay. They're sending troops to Portland, Chicago, LA, Boston. But there's no help for people who are literally sitting under a couple of feet of water from a typhoon. This is the future. They're going to abandon all of us in favor of themselves, because that's the one thing they're concerned about anymore, and that's themselves. Okay. Now, the older generation, Trump, his cabinet, a lot of the politicos, they're still into that same, let's coordinate a central interest and all profit off it. Ha, 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 ha. Again, the next step down, the next generation, these young Republicans, they're not into consolidating power to profit. They actually believe in the Nazism side wholly. They're dangerous, and they're going to get worse. This used to be fringe thinking. What I read in those text threads, they might as well have been, the Aryan Nation or something. They were that bad. One thing I want to end on today is a call to civic duty. And there's three things. One, get out and protest. Be part of the No Kings this weekend. I will probably be at my first protest. If I am, I'll put up sites. Hopefully my back and my recent surgery, I can tolerate being outside for a long time, and I can go out there for a couple hours. But get out there and protest. Be part of the voice. Be part of the presence. Protests, especially when they're covered in the national and international news, they're undeniable. Okay. And don't let them tell you you don't have a voice. They can go fuck themselves. Mike Grinder Johnson with his Negro houseboy. There's so many skeletons in that guy's closet. When those skeletons fall out, we're all going to have both a good laugh and a big bout of horror when that comes out. So get out to the protest. Don't stop speaking your mind online. Be part of the people who are going to not acquiesce to this nonsense, because none of this is correct. None of this is moral. None of this is ethical. Half of this shit is not even legal or constitutional. So be part of the protest. Be prepared to vote in anything that is going on from local to national. We have to start taking voting more seriously. And you need to get out and vote, because I keep looking at the splits between Democrat, Republican, independents, state by state. If we could get the independents and those from all three categories, R, D, or I, who don't tend to vote, if we can get the majority of them to vote and vote, hopefully in a more proper direction, we wouldn't have this capture we have right now in Washington and in many of the states. Like Oklahoma. Oklahoma doesn't have any other representation other than Republican. So vote. And one thing we really have to, I know this is a pain in the ass on this one, but we got to get serious about jury duty. Okay. I'm really impressed how some of these grand juries have come up and said, nope, we're not filing those felony charges. No, that's the second time we're telling you we're not filing felony charges. They bring it to a third grand jury. Nope, we're not filing felony charges. We need to be part of that grand jury process, and we need to be part of the Patet jury process, the trial jury. Okay. Start treating jury duty seriously. Show up to court. When you see people getting railroaded on political charges, be that voice in the jury box to say, no, this is not acceptable. Because it's funny, for years, I've been telling people about jury nullification and how some of the founding fathers actually wrote about it and how it's a real thing. And I got blown off and laughed at so many times. It was frustrating. Now we're seeing grand juries do it repeatedly. Okay. They can't get indictments in Washington, D.C., federal indictments, because you can't charge a felony unless you get an indictment from a grand jury under the federal court. They can't get them in Washington, D.C. They can't get them in LA. Okay. That's because citizens actually do have a voice in the legal process, and it's through the jury systems. Okay. Apply to become a grand jury member. I'm going to reapply next year. I've applied once before. I got turned down. But I'm going to try again. If you get a jury summons, show it to the jury. I know it's a pain in the butt. I know it is. It's a big chunk out of your day. I do consulting for a living. So if I'm not at my desk working, I don't have hours to charge. Okay. And I get stuck in a jury pool for a week. Nobody reimburses me. I don't get any jury duty pay. Okay. I did when I worked for my big tech company, but I don't get paid working for myself. But I'm going to make a point to answer those jury summons and get on juries. And when you see something on a jury, whether it's a grand or a trial jury, and you know it's just political horseshit, you've got to make a decision in the jury room. Call it out for what it is and nullify it. Jury nullification has always been a thing. Again, the founding fathers talked about it. That's why we have juries, so we can be the ultimate deciders. You are not convicted willy-nilly by dear leader if you're guilty or not guilty. Okay? It takes the opinion of a jury presented to a judge. The judge affirms the decision as an Article 3 judge and then passes sentence upon you. Okay? Citizens have a part of the process, in the legal system. We should recapture our part in a lot of ways and get back on those juries. Because, take like the drug war, for instance. I think a lot of the drug war could have been curtailed if we didn't have a disdain about jury service. Because I've had people tell me like, "Oh, I went to jury service and they were going to convict this, 19 or 20-year-old guy, to anybody my age, a kid, to like 5 years in state prison over a dime bag." And I'm just looking at him and go, "Why don't you nullify that?" Just tell him like the punishment doesn't meet the crime, or the crime is just total hokum. Okay, throwing a sandwich at a agent's level 4 body armor that can cause 0 harm to him. How is that a felony? Now, any unlawful touching is battery. Yeah, I get that. I know that. But how can you say it's felonious? Felonious is a serious crime that causes harm to the community or harm to a person. How does a um, sandwich being thrown at a body armor plate result in felony charges? The drunk Pereiro, the Fox News host, which is now the first public alcoholic federal attorney of Washington, D.C., she's going after everybody. She will not file any misdemeanors. Okay? So that means we've got to be on the grand juries. We've got to be on the trial going, so like, wait a minute, this is a felony? How the fuck did you file this as a felony? This is not felonious conduct. Robbing a bank is felonious. Beating your spouse with injury is felonious. Okay? Rape is felonious. A Subway sandwich thrown and bounced off and broken apart on the sidewalk, not so felonious. Okay? So that's what I mean, is recapture the process. And when you vote, realize when you vote for a DA, that means something. Okay, and we had to go both directions in my neck of the woods. We voted a literal nut job communist as a DA who wouldn't put enhancements on a literal serial killer. I'm not joking. I'm not being hyperbolic. The dude had killed people, half a dozen people in 3 counties. The crime he committed in our county, she refused to put the gun charges and the priors enhancement on his charge sheet. Okay. So we had to throw her out of office because she was insane. Okay. We said, stop putting young men in jail for bullshit things. Okay. And in my book, a dime bag, jail for a dime bag is just as much as bullshit as a jail for jaywalking. It's bullshit. Okay. So we asked you to do a specific thing. You went exactly where Trump accuses the woke of going, to the insane point. And she started not charging robbery and murder suspects with a proper sheet. But usually the other side happens. You end up with an extreme right winger instead of a far left dementia patient. Um, and they want to charge everybody with felonies. Um, no, there's a reason why the code, the legal code, the criminal codes are broken up between infractions, misdemeanors, and felonies. Okay, you can't just walk in the door and claim, "Oh, everything is felonious conduct." No, no. You have only two ways to stop that: paying attention. Who do you vote for your local DA in your county, and who you vote for your state AG? Okay, and whether or not you serve on a jury. So get out there, say yes to juries, apply for the grand jury. Usually takes some sort of background for them to accept you. But if like you're a teacher, an engineer, or you were an officer in the military or something like that, you could probably write up a nice application uh, uh, set and put it in there for good consideration. Um, Everybody gets jury summons, so take them seriously. We have to. We have to put in the time. If we don't put in the time, if we don't vote, if we don't protest, if we don't inform ourselves, if we don't call out the bullshit, and we don't serve on the juries in the legal process, we have very little else to do. Okay. And frankly, a riot is not an option. Okay. I worked the night of the Rodney King riots. You don't want that. I walked around for a couple of days wondering if we we're going to have a country at the end of it all. It was bad. So violence is not the answer here. Civic engagement is. That's why I love the Portland frog. And then the T-Rex and the raccoon and the honeybee and everybody else is showing up in the inflatable costumes. That's why I've been making all the election posters and putting them up. If you look over at my blue sky, I got a whole bunch of them up. Um, yeah, protesting and the mockery of the of the inflatable costumes. That's what gets the attention. Okay. Um, because I think the far right, especially Stephen Miller and Ross Veidt and a couple of the crazies in Congress, they would love to see another Kent State, except not 3 or 4 people down, like 300 or 400 people down. They would love it. That would be a dream come true for them, an excuse to do whatever they wanted to do. But protests, we may be looking at a big one, the biggest one we can do non-violently, and that would be a general strike. My son's been talking to my oldest son has been talking about it for a long time, and I've been trying to sort out my thought process on whether or not that would help or not. I'm really hoping the No Kings protest really turns up the heat on the administration. It's having an effect because all your local special elections have all flipped uh, toward Democrats and independents and away from Trumpian politics. Um, you just saw that again. Mayor's race in Alaska. Diehard homophobe, MAGA lunatic just got thrown out of office by a moderate. Okay. So they are having effect. People are already voting a little differently. And the skews you're seeing in the special elections is definitely proof of that. So stand up on Saturday, but be prepared for the next level of have to. That's including, going through some pain. A general strike means not going to work and not getting paid. It means not shopping. Okay. We have to send some shockwave through the system to get more attention, hopefully get some more moron going to back to Marjorie, uh, heading back toward the center. Um, if we don't do this peacefully, they will take advantage of it. The hardcore nationalist right will take advantage of it. If and this has a breaking point. This is where I'll leave. This is where I'll end tonight. This does have Trumpianism has a breaking point. Once he starts screwing with real money in this country, then all bets are off. Then you're going to see people start funding different candidates. You're going to see old timers in Congress suddenly their support and their money just fizzle away. Okay, just go ahead and screw up the bond market. Go ahead and making insurance policies impossible to write given the economic turmoil. Okay, you can't have capitalism without insurance and reinsurance. Okay, and that's all based on an underlying bond market. Okay, you start having general strikes that take supplies offline, start screwing up supply chains, um, yada 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 yada. Big money will notice. Okay, now some big money is so psycho they won't care, but their businesses will be harmed greatly, and you may see some internal action. Like you may finally see Musk being thrown off boards. You may see Bezos lose the iron fist control he has over the Amazon conglomerate. Okay, a lot of things can go wrong for these guys if the big money is affected in any way. Okay, um, they already don't like, and the bond market and the insurance markets don't like the tariffs. Have the tariffs do something seriously harmful or have something stupid they do politically really start undermining the relationship between bonds and insurance and reinsurance, yeah, you're going to have people freak out. People with real money freak out. Okay. That will be the death of Trumpianism. Let's see what we can do to help it along. Again, nonviolently. I will take this nonviolently to the nth degree because I'm so worried that they are looking for any hot button to push. And then we have to rely on generals not following orders. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. So let's try protesting and a general strike first. Okay? Till next time, think about it.